thank you for joining us on another episode of Adventures in Fly Tying with your friends, flyfishohio.com. I'm your host, Joe Cornwall. Welcome to Season 3, Episode 5. We've got a really neat pattern for you today. This, of course, is the classic Royal Coachman wet fly. I tie the Royal Coachman just a little bit differently for fishing around here. I tie it with a rolled hen hackle wing. That gives me just a little bit more motion in the water. This fly accounted for one of my best days ever with smallmouth bass. It was right around the end of May. The bass were post-spawn. I was fishing on the East Fork Creek of the Little Miami River, and standing in one spot, I took about 34 smallmouth bass from 8 to 16 inches on this fly. Fantastic pattern. Use this one when the bass go post-spawn. Size 12 is the size I like to tie it in. Let's tie one now. I'm going to use a standard wet fly hook, or you could use a dry fly hook, Mustad 94 840 or something similar, but you want a 1XL standard wet fly hook in a size 12. We're going to use an 8/0 thread. This is an 8/0 black thread. Start your thread right behind the hook eye and lay down a good thread base all the way to a point directly above the barb of the hook. Now, the Royal Coachman traditionally is tied with a fiery brown hackle for the tail. We're going to use a hen hackle, and this is almost more of a speckled brown. It'll be just a slightly softer color, but it'll work beautifully. We'll select a feather. What I'm going to do is take some of these feather barbules. I'm going to strip those off, roll them, and then that will become the tail of my fly. Now I want the tail to be about the length of the body, so there's my tie-in point. Loose pinch wrap, tie it down once, 2, 3 thread wraps are really all that you need to hold that in place, and then go ahead and remove the rest of that material. Now we're going to tie in peacock curl. I've already prepared 3 or 4 peacock curls. By evening the tips, I'll cut off the very fragile tips where they may break anyway, and I'm going to tie those in and bring my thread to about the halfway point of the shank. Now I'm going to gently twist those 3 peacock curls or 4 peacock curls into a rope, and I'm going to make just a little ball of peacock at the end of the Royal Coachman. Capture the peacock curls under one wrap of thread, and then just using a couple of open spirals, I'm going to bring that thread up. And I'm going to leave the peacock curls attached because they're going to make the front of it. We're going to do this nice and easy. Now the center section should be a nice red or crimson floss, and that's what I have here. This is a little different way of doing it. I've taken about 8 inches of floss. I'm going to double it over the thread, wrap it to the point where I want it, bring my thread back over the top of the floss to a point where I want that red waist to begin. And of course the red waist is what makes the Royal in the Royal Coachman. Go ahead and twist that silk floss up, and now I'll just go ahead and make a fat midsection, that bright red. And what I may do on this is actually come back and go forward again to make that the same thickness as that peacock. Tie off that center section of floss. We're not tying show flies here, we're tying fishing flies. Let's not forget that. We can certainly do this with great historical accuracy and lots of detail, but that's no fun when the fish tear them up into little pieces, and they will, because in the springtime, even though this doesn't look like it to us, this is an excellent imitation of a caddis pupa, believe it or not, with that little white and that slightly motion of the peacock curl and the soft hen hackles. Now you can see what I'm doing is I'm making the second peacock curl bump in front of that red waist, and I'll just go ahead and tie that off with just a couple of quick wraps of thread. That'll hold that in place just fine. Now, 2 more sections that I need to put into this fly to complete it. I want to have a little beard hackle, and this is something that we haven't tried before, so this is a new technique for us here. We're going to use, once again, the same brown that we used for the tail, and we're going to take one of those hackles, we're going to make a little beard out of it. Once again, we'll just strip a little bit of that hackle material off. We'll take the part that we want, roll it. There's the beard hackle. I'll just hold that underneath the hook eye. Loose pinch wrap. 2 or 3 wraps to hold that in. Go ahead and set that nicely. And then we have the beard hackle underneath, very traditional wet fly style. Now, on a lead wing Coachman or the original Royal Coachman, the wings were tied of matched pieces of duck wing quill. We're going to use a rolled white hen hackle. That'll work even better. Same idea. I want to take the amount that I need, I'm going to probably use about 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch of material. Take those hackles and literally form a tube or roll them into a ball. That's a rolled hen hackle wing. Measure that so that that wing comes out to about the end of where the bend of the hook is. I'll go ahead and tie that in with a loose wrap, pinch wrap, then a couple of tight wraps to hold that down, seated properly. Let's go ahead and clip out the excess material that I don't need. Now I can finish off with a neat thread head. It's actually Royal Coachman. Some people might think of the Royal Coachman as a complicated fly to tie with a lot of steps, but it's actually a very simple little pattern to tie, and it's a very good pattern to use for a lot of different things. First of all, this is a great bluegill fly, great rock bass fly, but as I suggested, this is an excellent smallmouth bass pattern in this size, in a size 12, for those post-spawn period when you'll see in some of the runs where there's some rocks and a little bit of depth, you'll see a gold flashing in the water as the smallmouth bass take caddisflies and drifting insects, something that they normally don't do later on in the year, but we have 3 or 4 weeks when a size 12 Royal Coachman wet fly like that will just absolutely tear them up, and you can catch literally dozens and dozens of smallmouth bass in one spot, not to mention a lot of panfish that go with it. Look at that. Isn't that a fantastic pattern? Really pretty, wonderful colors. Royal Coachman. What a great pattern to fish in the springtime. Thanks for joining us on Adventures with Fly Tying. Join us on the web at www.flyfishohio.com. Tight lines.